KC 101, time for another edition of Saturday with Seniors, brought to you by Eisenhower's Tioga County Harley Davidson. Just south of Mansfield, proud supporters of our community and lots of things in our community. If you're looking for a bike, go see them down there at Eisenhower's. Got a bike to sell? Go see them at Eisenhower's. And if you need any service work, they'll take care of you. And our guest today, Chuck Bates, joins us. Chuck, I guess I'm going to ask you the first very personal question. How old are you?
93.
You're 93, and how'd you get here to the station?
I was...
You drove here.
I drove here, exactly.
That's all I wanted you to say.
Okay.
That's great. You're getting around awesome. You don't even have a cane. I mean,
I'm blessed.
You're beyond blessed.
Yes, sir.
93 years old. You got everything going on for you. So 93, that means you were born what year?
1930.
Wow. So you were born during the last years of Prohibition. You were born before World War II had started. And...
I was born just when the Great Depression started.
And I was going to say, yes, the Great Depression was going on at that time, too. So I'm sure your parents told you some stories. So let's, where were you born? Where did you grow up? When did your first few years of your life?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, suburb of Pittsburgh.
And what did your parents do for work?
My father worked at a bank in Pittsburgh, and my mother was a homemaker.
Uh-huh.
That was it.
You know, being a mom now is a legit occupation, but back when your parents were there, being a mom was probably one of the toughest occupations there was, because nowadays, you know, we order food in, we buy, you know, frozen dinners to warm up, but your mom, I'm sure, had to make food, you know, probably prepared just about every meal.
She did prepare every meal. I don't think we ever went out to eat.
And you probably didn't have an electric washing machine with a computer control that stopped for you, I'm guessing.
A ringer washer.
Okay. And so chores like even just doing laundry were much bigger chores than they are now.
Yes, it was a hands-on operation for sure.
I mean, what did your house heat with as a kid?
Coal.
So someone had to carry that coal in.
Yes, sir. It was a dirty way to heat, but it kept you warm.
Yeah. People have no idea how much more chores and work had to be done around the house back then. I mean, did you have electric? No, obviously you didn't have electric when you were a kid.
Yes.
You did. Well, you were very fortunate to have electric as a kid.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know how it would be without it.
Yeah.
Never had to live that way.
Did your parents ever tell you any stories that they remember they were young, anything that sticks in your head? I mean, your parents would have been born, I mean... Boy, I'm guessing like your grandparents were around at the time of the Civil War, I would imagine, right?
Yes.
Did you ever talk to anyone who was in the Civil War, have relatives or?
No, I did not. My grandfather Bates came from Kentucky, and I'm sure that they were at one time involved, but we never discussed the Civil War.
So you were born in Pittsburgh, and then you went to school out there. Is that where your first schooling was?
Yes, it was. You mean grade school, high school?
Yeah, grade school, high school, yes. Both those, yes. So what was school like? Were you close enough to the city that it was a bigger school, or were you in a one-room schoolhouse?
No, it wasn't one room, but it was not a consolidated school. They had, or I should say we had local schools to cover certain areas. So probably 6-8 rooms in the school.
Mm-hmm. And this was during the war days that you were in school.
I was. The World War II started, I was almost 12 years of age when it started, December 7th, 1941. Remember it clearly.
Wow. So tell me about what you remember that day. How did you find out the war had started? Because, I mean, there wasn't TV news then. It was radio, TV. Obviously, but good old radio.
Just radio. And I clearly remember hearing President Roosevelt saying about the day of infamy when he declared war against Japan.
Wow. So I never talked to anybody that remembers hearing Roosevelt live on the radio.
I did.
So what were your parents, you probably didn't understand at that time what was going on. You were pretty young, or did you? Or did your parents explain it to you, or what did...
About the war?
Yeah, what that meant.
being 12 years of age, everything war related was just was the top of the list.
Mhm.
Just very interested in what was going on. The aircraft flying over in formation headed toward
Yep.
Europe at that time. I guess that was, well, must have been, it was going east, it was going to Europe.
Yep.
And we also became involved in that war.
And air raids in school and all that stuff. Did you have all that going on? Did you turn off the lights at night? Do you remember what was going on during the war that was different? Rationing of gas?
Oh, my. Rationing of gas. Had to have your coupons. No butter. You had oleo. Was the white white sticky stuff. You added a color to it, and it tasted like white sticky stuff.
Laugh now. It's
Yeah.
long
Yes,
enough.
I remember my dad was a local warden, which periodically would have a test to make sure he couldn't see any lights. So everybody had heavy curtains, and warden would go around and check to see if there was any light being disclosed from a home. So I remember that very clearly.
And if there was light being disclosed, they get a knock on the door. Was it a fine or just,
Probably not. If they didn't do
just-
it, I guess
yeah.
there would have been.
Sure.
Yeah.
And people were supportive of that, or were they
Oh, yes.
trying to? Okay, everyone was teamed up, working together.
Oh, yes. We were at war, and that everybody was at war.
Hmm. I remember reading about the victory gardens.
Oh, yes.
That's a term that you don't hear so much anymore.
No, don't hear a lot of things, I'm afraid.
Do you feel like people trusted the government a little bit more then? Because it seems like when they told people to do stuff, they were. But then again, everybody felt like they were giving good advice, which I think they were. I mean, if they at that time, if they could see where the houses were, they would have bombed you.
Yes. Well,
Potentially.
I think we did trust the government,
Mm-hmm.
certainly much more than today, and we didn't have nearly as much government.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, there wasn't even, if I remember correctly, there wasn't even unemployment at that time period. That came out after the Great Depression. I mean, when you were a very young kid, if you didn't have work, you relied on
Welfare.
family.
And welfare. There was welfare.
It started right around that time
Yes.
period, I believe. The churches were really the backbone of, the soup kitchens and the helping people to survive when there wasn't enough jobs for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, yes, a number of relatives relied on welfare. Our family didn't, fortunately, but
Yeah. People didn't abuse it then. It was, if you needed it, you used, yeah.
they needed it.
Yep, and then that makes sense if you need it. Absolutely. What other memories do you have of that time period? Boy, what did you do for a kid, like for fun or entertainment? Did your family have any money to go out to? Did you ever go out to eat at that time period, or that?
Never went out to eat. I think we were lucky to eat at home. Yeah, I remember. Rationing, which we already talked about. I guess we mostly just had our own entertainment at home. Nothing spectacular.
Card games, board games, that type of stuff.
Probably board games yet. I don't particularly remember which ones.
Yeah.
Maybe dominoes, maybe checkers, nothing sophisticated.
Yeah. And your house was heated with coal as well.
Absolutely.
So today, kids rarely have any chores. It seems like. I mean, I'm sure there are some kids that have chores, but
Yes.
when I was a kid, pretty much every kid had some chores. But what were chores like when you were a kid? What would a typical set of you have an hour a day of stuff you had to do?
I don't remember exactly any particular chores, but I know that we all had our things, our parts to play.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, probably cutting the grass with a push reel.
A real push mower, yeah. I don't think many people. When I was a kid, my grandpa still had one, and I was the type of kid like, I want to try. Yeah, I want to try this. No motor on it. Just
No.
you sharpen the blades, and that thing was. That was hard to push. It was like pushing a wheelbarrow full of bricks.
Nobody had big yards.
Yeah. If they did, they had big muscles.
Yeah. Or a lot of kids, maybe.
So do you remember your earliest days being in town? Was there more horses than cars or more cars than horses?
No, there were no horses. I was in a suburb of Pittsburgh, but wasn't nearly what it is today. No, there were no horses.
People I talked to around here in the 40s, it was about equal with horses and cars,
Probably.
but a lot of people had farms that they'd come into town on their horse, and then it started to transition more, and after that time period to almost all cars. Do you remember going to movies when you were younger? Did you ever?
Movies were something that we didn't do.
Did you ever go to sports? Did you see the Pittsburgh Pirates play when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah, well, yes.
Because that was probably not $200 a ticket like it is now or whatever.
Oh, I don't have any idea. Never went to a game. I used to go to the Pittsburgh Hornets playing. My dad had a friend who was reported for the sports guy. Used to watch the Hornets play hockey.
And that was when you were a young kid.
Yes,
and that,
yes.
that was they had
Probably a teenager at the time.
Yeah. And was it or whatever you call it now, a place with a rink and a stadium like we have nowadays? Or I don't even know if we had Zambonis back then. I'm going to learn this one.
It was a converted streetcar barn. It wasn't big at all, and the rink, of course, and.
So if it wasn't freezing out, the team didn't play.
Well, no, I think they had.
They didn't have cooling
I think
systems
they had
then.
ice makers. Yeah,
they did. Okay.
Oh, must have. I remember that. At a little older age, I remember Bill Mazeroski hitting a home run in the was this last game of the World Series. Hit a home run, which won the series for Pittsburgh. I was working. I was older at that time, working in town, and it was just sudden silence, and then the city exploded. Just horns, throwing paper out of the windows. It was amazing.
Wow. So how did people all find out? They're listening to KDKA. That was the famous Pittsburgh radio AM station.
KDKA.
Yeah.
Yes.
First station in the country, started in Pittsburgh. Just turned 100 years old a few years ago, so it outdates you a little bit.
Yeah. That was a big day.
Did you ever meet anyone famous when you were younger, or actors or musicians or anything?
When I was older, maybe everyone wouldn't know who Werner von Braun is or was. He was the primary developer of the V-2 bomb or missile in Germany. Then he came to the United States after the war, and he was developing the Redstone missile. So he was very well known at that time.
One of those people who was probably more important than, unless you read the history, you wouldn't realize. A lot of times people we idolize really didn't do a darn thing to help the world.
No.
But,
that was, yes, he wouldn't be that well known otherwise.
Who were some of the other famous people that, do you remember that people idolized? Like when you were in, grammar school, high school, Hank Aaron, or I don't know where these people fall, but, or Charlie Chaplin, or was there, or really that wasn't a part of your life?
I guess it wasn't an important part. I do not remember that offhand.
So you said when you were a kid you did laundry. Mom did laundry by hand on a washboard.
Well, not on a washboard, but she had a wringer washer with the laundry tubs, and I remember that she used to iron my dad's collars. Used starch in the collars.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it was all very, very little automatic at all.
Yeah. The iron was sitting on the wood stove or the coal stove to warm up.
Well, it was electric.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't that far back. Okay.
Around here, it would have been on the stove for most people in the 30s.
Yes.
Give me a second here. So when you were younger, taking a bath, how often did your family, it wasn't every day like it is now. People never, I wouldn't say never, but 90% of America takes a bath every day. It wasn't that way, was it?
It was not that. Saturday night bath, that was it.
And do you How many people use the same water? If I can ask, more than we would now.
Well, I was the oldest, so hopefully I got the cleanest.
They went by age order.
I think so.
I heard some families say dad got him first, mom, and and then the smaller kids would be 2 in there at a time. A lot of families had 7, 8 kids back then. Did you have a lot of siblings?
Have three siblings, yes. And houses only had 1 bathroom at that time.
Wow.
So that was a challenge.
Yep. And to heat the water for your tub, was that running water and a water heater, or was that?
Yeah, the water heater was in the basement.
Okay. So you actually very modernized for the late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, well.
90% of the people in Pennsylvania, especially rural areas, didn't have that luxury.
No.
So did your dad have a car back then?
No. My dad had a friend, very good friend, who ended up boarding with us for years. He was single, and he had a car. So we were able to use it occasionally, but no car.
Mm-hmm. Do you yourself? So you went from there. When did you first drive a car? Do you remember your first experience?
I was 16. Yes, it was a '35 Chevrolet. It had mechanical brakes, and of course, no power steering, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And it had, I guess, 3, 4 on the floor.
Yeah.
Shift.
All the cars were what's called standard, which now isn't even, most aren't even available in that. But that was called standard because it was the standard. Automatic transmission is what everybody's familiar with. So you had to learn how to use a clutch, obviously, and all that.
And then mechanical brakes, you got to plan ahead when you're going to stop, because the harder you push the pedal, the harder it slows you down faster.
Yeah, those old cars were made all out of steel. They weren't all that lightweight.
They even had bumpers.
That could survive more than 5 miles an hour.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So let's see, schooling into high school. What happened next in your life?
I went a year and a half to Penn State College. I was, I think I chose the wrong major because it was agricultural economics, and organic chemistry wasn't my thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then after that, then I was 21, I volunteered for the Army. Is that something? Yes.
Wow. So did you know you wanted to volunteer all along, or was that a split-second decision?
I had a cousin that was a career military who was killed in Korea. I had a next-door neighbor who was in the Marine Reserves. He was called over, activated, and he was killed there too. So I think that prompted me to enlist at that time. Patriotic thing to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service, and I hope we have enough people in this world to do that now if we need that. You know, our country has 3 times the population as we had then, but I still don't know that we have as many. I mean, people like you that volunteer are. I mean, every veteran's a hero, but that's like a step beyond that to say, you know what, take me, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So where did you end up? Were you deployed?
I was. I went to Korea in '51 and returned home or back to the States in '52. So I was there about a year, and I was with the regimental combat team. Fortunately, I wasn't a rifleman, but was subject to danger anyway. Mm-hmm. But came home, which is a blessing.
Yeah, that was 72 years ago in 1951. Hard to believe that, huh?
Yeah. Where'd all that time go?
Did you travel overseas on a plane or a boat?
A troop ship. I went out from...
Those aren't like today's luxury Viking cruise lines that we see here, right?
No. It was, I think, if I recall correctly, it took us 30 days by troop ship. I think we probably... A
month at sea. And there's no stabilizers on this boat, so it moves, you move.
My sleeping was in the bow of the ship, which is the worst place when you're on rough seas.
Yep. Think of a ship as like a seesaw. The middle of it doesn't move a lot, and each end goes up and down as it rocks. So, and left and right in the same way. You want to be in the center of the center.
Yeah, but I wasn't blessed with that.
Oh, wow.
It was quite a trip.
How long after you left before you got any correspondence back from family? Because, when you got over there, there wasn't, or were you able to call back at that time and talk to family? No, you wrote a letter. And so 30 days later you arrive, you write a letter to your family. How long before you finally got something back from your family?
Well, actually I was delayed in Japan. I had a ruptured appendix. So I wrote to them from the hospital, and I understood that when I got the letter from the hospital, they all started crying. That was, I don't remember how long. I'm sure that my mother particularly made sure that I heard from them.
Yeah. Wow. What a story. So your ruptured appendix, they fixed that up, and then they put you out on the battlefield.
That's exactly right. Yes.
And then you came home from there from the military. Did you stay in the military after your deployment? No.
Well, I had enlisted for 3 years, so I was back in the States at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. That must have been warm.
Yeah, good. It was a good duty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Other than it being warm down there. These are before the days of air conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah, we lived in wooden barracks.
Mm-hmm. Wooden barracks?
The old wooden barracks.
Protect you from a BB gun.
Yeah.
So then your 3-year term was up, and you came back to the Pittsburgh area, or what happened at that point?
I did. I came back to the Pittsburgh area. I had met my future wife and at 54, got out in January 54, and we married in May of 54.
How'd you meet your future wife?
Through her father, actually. He had a little gas station near where I lived at the time, and that's how I met her, through him. So I guess I was okay, because he approved.
Yeah, you didn't even have to ask Dad's permission.
No.
It was
yeah.
He was asking your permission, I guess.
Well, no, it was mutual. It was very good.
Take my daughter, please. So tell me, so you knew her before this, then, when he said, "Would you take my daughter on a date," or whatever? Or was this a blind date that you went on?
Yeah, it was mostly just when I came back from the Army. I was still in the Army, and I met her.
Yeah.
So then we married in May of 54.
So that was pretty quick.
Yes, well, her folks were leaving. They were moving here to Wellsboro to buy the Terrace Motor Court at that time, which it was, and so that's why we got married in May, 54.
You got married there, or?
No, there.
Okay.
Outside of Pittsburgh.
Yep, just before her parents moved to Wellsboro.
Right.
Gotcha. And so you got married, you got a house together. Do you have the white picket fence, the dog, the whole everything, the American dream at that time?
We lived in an apartment for a couple of years, then we bought a small home between Pittsburgh and Butler. It was Nursery Park. It was very appropriately named because there were a lot of kids. Yeah, so that was our first home.
Yeah.
And then we progressed, bought a little bigger home in Pittsburgh suburb.
Great. And then you probably started visiting Wellsboro at this point because her parents had moved to here.
Started visiting Wellsboro in 1954.
1954. I'll tell you what, we're going to make this into a 2-part piece, so people are going to have to tune in next week to hear about your Wellsboro part. We'll record now, so we're gonna. Cause I never know when I'm talking to someone how much I get to talk about, and you are really sharp, and you've got a lot of really interesting stuff. And I'm really interested to hear about your Wellsboro days.
Yes,
which started back in 1954 is when your first visit to Wellsboro was.
Yes, exactly.
So I want to hear about your first impressions of Wellsboro nearly 70 years ago. We're going to do that next Saturday here on Saturday with Seniors. This has been Saturday with Seniors here on KC 101. Big thank you going out to Eisenhower's Tioga County Harley-Davidson, reminding you that motorcycles are on the road. It's the season, and we want everybody to be safe. They want all their customers to be safe. Keep an eye out for all the bikes out there. And when you're looking for a motorcycle, accessories, sales, or service, you can count on the sponsor of today's show, Eisenhower's Tioga County Harley-Davidson, South Mansfield. And by the way, if you're a veteran and you're attending the Tioga County Fair, they do have free passes. You can pick up in person free veterans passes, free gate passes for the Tioga County Fair for veterans. If you're unable to make it there, you can call us here at KC 101 each Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Saturday with Seniors. If you missed any of this show or any of the past shows, go to youtube.com. You can just simply do a search for Saturday with Seniors and you'll find all the shows, or you can find our channel on there that has almost 200 different videos, a lot of them history related about Tioga